like wrestling.
Hey everyone, welcome to the We Like Wrestling podcast. I'm Jared. I'm here with Justin.
Hey,
John.
what's up?
And we have a very special guest today, TJP. First off, again, thank you for joining us here. We know you have a busy schedule with your baby boy there.
Oh, no worries. Thank you guys for having me. The triple J podcast.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed your trip down to Philly and Allentown, by the way.
No, very much. Yeah, it's a big, two big wrestling towns. So I like being in that atmosphere, and especially the first day at the arena was especially nice with so many people and everything.
It was, yeah. It was a lot larger than I expected.
Yeah. That was our first time there. You've been there plenty of times. But it was honestly great. The atmosphere there was amazing. It was a fun weekend. First off, I want to get into talking about. We all can't believe your age and how young you look. And you started your wrestling career at such a young age. 15, 16?
13.
You started. Okay. Jeez.
Yeah.
What was that? You were still a kid. What was that like?
It was so long ago, and I was so young. I don't remember what life was like before wrestling, like before having a suitcase packed all the time, things like that. Like I don't remember what it's like to wake up in the morning and like all I gotta do is eat cereal all day and play video games or something. This lifestyle, I guess, has been so long in my life that it's weird to see it. It's hard to imagine not doing
it. A lot of kids' dream is to be a professional wrestler, and you got to live that at such a young age. And where you started in New Japan, correct?
It was my first big break, but I started in local companies just like anybody else.
Yeah, I think you were the youngest wrestler to ever step foot in a New Japan ring, right? At the dojo?
Not the youngest overall, but the youngest American, yeah. But I'm the youngest gaijin, youngest foreigner in the Tokyo Dome, and youngest foreigner in the company.
That's awesome. That is great.
How did the grown men treat you differently? Like, because you were a kid, did they like take it easy on you? Or are they still like, this life you want? No?
No, that didn't exist back then, man. That was the Wild West in the 90s. Guys were, everything was still really hard. You still had, that was still the drug addict generation. And most of the guys, being young in wrestling now is a rare thing because it's a life game. It's equal parts life experience and physical ability. So it wasn't like other sports, like most guys, they don't hit their prime until they're like 35 because you get old enough to start to read the room. You have some life experience, and you're still at your physical peak at that age. You haven't really faded yet. So it's like, that's usually guys' prime. So the idea of guys being like 24, 25, 26 years old and being a top guy in a big company, that's not normal. That's just like a current generation thing. So at the time, I broke in and guys the average age of a professional wrestler was so much older back then. I was 13, 14, 15, and the guys I was riding to shows with, they were 30, 32 years old, maybe 28, So I skipped to the back end of my childhood for the most part, just to kind of get into this.
How, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how did your parents feel about you going off at such a young age to pursue your dream?
My parents were always really hands off with me. They were absent a lot when I was a kid because they both worked for the airlines. They worked for TWA, and so they would be gone on trips 2 weeks at a time sometimes, and I'd just be home with like a sitter or like my grandmother or something like that. So I kind of learned to fend for myself at a young age. Like I learned how to do laundry when I was like 10. I could cook basic foods when I was like 10, 11 years old. So they never had to like tell me to be home before the lights come on outside, or like don't put my fingers in light sockets, that sort of thing. You know, like one time, yeah, every kid has like a I'm mad at my parents, so I'm gonna run away story, right? You know, like, and I was of like an aptitude at a young age that like when I was like, forget this, I'm leaving, and you know, you pack your lunchbox, like you're gonna move away. I successfully went down the street to the bus stop, got on the bus, took the bus to the mall, and spent a day at the mall as like a little kid. I was like 11 years old, 10 years old. Like, so my parents more or less never had to worry about me because I didn't really get into trouble necessarily overall, and they knew that I was like a smart kid. So I guess when I started wrestling, they didn't really keep tabs on me. They didn't know. Like when I was in high school, I didn't go like to parties and stuff a lot, but if I did go out, they never gave me curfews or anything. And I've never like drank or done drugs or anything in my life, and so like I didn't have a track record for them to ever need to like keep a hold of me. So like when I started wrestling, they knew, but they didn't really know. They didn't know what I was doing. So and when I started, being 13. In order to kind of do it successfully and consistently, I had to like ditch school on like a Friday morning. I would go to like first period or something like that. Then I would leave, walk out maybe during second period. And then, I would go with somebody would pick me up at the school, one of the wrestlers or something. We would go to the show that Friday night, and I don't know where it'd be. So I'm in Southern California. We might drive to San Francisco or to Los Angeles or Anaheim or something like that and do the show, maybe to Arizona, Phoenix, whatever, Las Vegas, someplace like that, like regional, And then I would just jump in somebody else's car to go to the next show on Saturday night, and then somebody else's car to go to the next show on Sunday night. Everybody was doing different shows. So, you just kind of hop cars until you get where you need to go. And then I would just get dropped back off at school on Monday, halfway through the day or something. So I'd kind of like skip a couple half days of school a week. But, other than maybe getting truancy calls every now and then, my parents never really knew. But I was smart after like my freshman year. I started filling out wrong phone numbers in my school registration so that they wouldn't be able to call home anyway. So it didn't really matter.
So being that young, did anybody kind of like take you under their wing and like, all right, I'll protect you. I'll show you like what to do and where to go, who to work for.
Yeah, I would think you could have been taken advantage of by some of the veterans.
No, I didn't really have any mentors, I had a few good big brothers, I guess, and that sort of thing, but nobody ever really looked out for me, I like anywhere I went to, nobody said, hey, come with us, do this thing, and we can get you in here, we can get you in there, and like kind of keep the ball rolling for me. I had to like tag along and do the grunt work myself. I'd be like, hey, where are you guys going? Can I get in on this? That sort of thing. Nobody ever was like, hey, come and do this. This is a good career move. This is how you can grow. This is how I had to ask questions on my own. Hey, why do you do this in matches? Why do you do that? Like, how does this work? Like, what's the thought process behind doing this? And I did that. I'm still doing that. I did that for I'm 23 years in now. I still do that today. And it isn't until like the last few years when I'm asking guys who are like of the highest caliber, you ask like a Chris Jericho or somebody like that in the locker room. And when these guys, Shawn Michaels, like when these guys stop having answers for you, then it's like, okay, finally I feel like I'm learning some stuff because I'm starting to get to the aptitude that people can't answer my questions anymore. But no, that's how I had to do it for 2 decades, man. I just hope I didn't die and hope that I keep learning,
So with you've been in New Japan, MLW,
pretty much everywhere you could think of, except for AEW yet.
Yeah.
TNA, WWE, yeah.
It's still new.
Right.
So out of all of those promotions in different countries and all of that, where do you feel like you learned the most to like perfect your style and all of that?
Probably Mexico. The atmosphere there, it teaches you a lot about professionalism. One, it gives you a good feeling of what it should feel like to be in the big leagues, because that's a 6-7 day a week schedule, and it's all big arenas. And by big, I just mean like they're proper arenas. Like they're kind of is like Mexican independence, but like even to this day, generally speaking, 90% of these shows are like in actual arenas. It might only be like a 2,000 seat arena or something that's smaller, but it's still an arena. You know, an Arena Mexico's, you know, it's a real stadium. You know, 16,000 people. Coliseo's like 5 or 8,000, something like that. So I guess what I'm saying is, you go down there, you get put to work 7 days a week. So it's like, oh, this is what it's like to really do this. You know, if you were like in WWE or something like that, like WCW at the time I grew up, when I got into the business, WCW was still around. So, you know, you go down there and you work like that, and it's like, okay, I'm working every day. This is what this feels like. And every day you're in a real arena. So it's like, oh, this is what this feels like. So you get acclimated to how it feels to be in a big league atmosphere. And then, you know, like people think Mexican wrestling is all just this physical stuff, but there's such a high level of professionalism in their art, as far as like curating their costumes and their look and their characters and their presentation timing, you know, entering the ring and like taking pictures and like the timing of your matches, like how they like appeal to the crowd. Like these are things that like are super important lessons if you expect to be at a major league level anywhere in any other country. And so being at the major league level there, or any level down there, teaches you these things that like this is how this could make or break you in WWE, for example. To be honest, like the moonsaults and the jumping, all the flying stuff, like that's almost last on the list down there. But until you're down there, you don't experience it, you don't know. But I mean, that's easily the best place for, as far as my upbringing has been, Mexico.
They take it serious down there.
Oh, and the crowds are always so hot. I remember watching it as a kid, like watching, you know, I'd watch it on the like Telemundo and stuff, and
yeah,
it wasn't like American wrestling, and I didn't know what they were saying. It was just on TV, and I'd catch it
and just watch it,
and just the crowd, no matter what they did, was always so hot and loud.
Well, I've heard the same thing with Japan too.
Japan's very quiet.
Yeah.
Back Japan in the day, Japan, in the beginning, in the 70s, Japan was very loud. It was very raucous. Then somewhere through the late 80s and through the 90s, like when I first started there in the early 2000s, it was like 2002. So it's still kind of like that 90s generation, and they were really quiet at that time. But I'd say maybe around like 2010, they started becoming a lot more like westernized in terms of their like entertainment culture. And they started to kind of emulate American crowds. And then the matches started to take on like more of a North American tempo and timing to it. You could kind of see it now. Like if you watched any of Wrestle Kingdom this week, you can kind of see some of the influences. It doesn't feel as purely Japanese as it used to be. But now they make more noise. I mean, now they kind of can't because of like COVID regulations, but otherwise they would. Yeah, but no, Mexico's, there's nothing like it. Nothing like Mexico.
I don't remember whose book it was, but it was one of the wrestlers' books I read who said the first time they wrestled in Japan and it was silent, and he thought, oh my God, they must hate me. They must hate this match. How can I work the crowd if it's like, you know, like a library in here? And whoever he was working with said, no, you're fine. This is how it is over here. They're not going to boo or cheer.
For about a 10-15 year period, it was like a tennis match.
Oh yeah.
So they'll watch something intently and watch it play out, and then they'll make noise once they see how it played out. You know,
they'll clap at the end, like respectfully.
It really is, because they get very wrapped up in details of things, and they're not as emotional as an American crowd, you know. So they'll watch it, and then once they see how it plays out, then they'll let out more emotionally, and they'll make noise. That's how it was for a long time. Now it's a little bit more liberal with the noise making now, but it used to be like that. Yeah.
And with you traveling a lot, what was your favorite style and culture to learn in and out of the ring?
I really liked living in Japan. Being over
Most
there.
people who go there from America seem to like it there.
Yeah, I just it's not for everybody, but there's a certain solitude in it that's peaceful. So it kind of depends. If you're a very social person, it might be a little tough. And there's tons of variables, how you eat, and, that sort of thing. But I feel like if you're comfortable in your own skin, that's like one of the best places to have an excursion like that. I love the culture and the way that Tokyo feels and everything. It's good.
It's one place I'd love to go to visit.
Yeah.
Spend like a month there. You can't do that I couldn't do it for just a week. I'd have to go for like a month.
When did you start actually like traveling? So obviously you were in school, but and as a kid, I'm sure your dream was to go to WWE. But when did you initially be like, all right, I can do this,
Well, WWE was actually never my goal. Maybe like WCW for a few years. It wasn't that I didn't want to go to WWF at the time. It wasn't that I didn't want to go, but I really wanted to go to New Japan and CMLL because that's what all my heroes did, and that's what I really liked at the time. The Super J Cup, and I wanted to do the things that Eddie did, that Malenko, Benoit, and Jericho, the guys didn't. Like Eddie, for example, he started, he was in like CMLL, and then he was in AAA, and then he was in New Japan, and then ECW, and WCW, and WWE was at the end. It was like kind of whatever, but so for me, like, yeah, I was probably doing regional stuff for the first 4 years, and I was in high school. I wasn't 18 yet. And by the time I turned 18, I was like really traveling. Like in my teens, I would travel a little bit. Like I would hop the border. I would go over to Tijuana and stuff like that. I got held up at gunpoint by police when I was like 15 and got robbed.
That's insane.
In Mexico?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So that was like the extent of my traveling, regional stuff and things like that. And I actually was there was a company called UPW, and they were like the first NXT, almost one of the first developmental territories for WWF. That's where John Cena came from. That's where Victoria came from. Miz came through there at one point. And they were based out of LA. And so really good wrestlers in the area kind of were brought in, just like NXT now. Like if there's a really good Florida-based wrestler, you'll see them on NXT, doing extra matches or something. And so I was training and doing these shows for them. So it was basically wrestling for WWF developmental when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
And like training with Cena and in the same classes and everything. I just, I wasn't eligible for a contract. I was a kid, but I was
You didn't lie about your age like Jeff?
No, I couldn't. There's no way I could have lied about my age. I look 21 now, and I'm 37.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you think I looked when I was 15?
Yeah.
So, I was good enough to do the stuff. I just wasn't going to get a job at it. And I guess, so the thing is, that was my first, it's regional, but it's like, that was my first, like, this is a big atmosphere sort of thing. Because you're learning the WWF system, timing, production, you're meeting and being scouted and evaluated by, Jim Ross, and Regal, and all these guys. And I mean, this is long before Hunter was part of like the office system. He was literally just, I don't even think he was a world champion yet. He was still like Intercontinental champ, but he would come in and do guest spots or matches or something like that. So when WWF dropped their ties with them and moved on to Ohio Valley and the other developmental territories, they linked up with Japan. And that was 0-1. That's how Samoa Joe got over there, because Samoa Joe was with us at UPW. And so that's how Joe ended up in 01. But 01 was brand new, and a lot of their office infrastructure was still linked to New Japan. And that's how I ended up in New Japan. So New Japan kind of scouted me my senior year of high school. And I was in the dojo in LA for New Japan. Like I would leave class, and my senior year I'd leave class and go to the dojo and spend the rest of the day there. And as soon as I turned 18 at the end of the summer, they processed a visa for me and sent me overseas. And I did the Tokyo Dome and toured and everything. So that was like my first thing. It was like my first big break, my first real job in wrestling, and the first time I was really traveling. And that's also kind of why I still have those age records, because like I was like weeks after my birthday.
Wow.
So like it would be kind of hard. You'd have to get lucky with timing to kind of do that again, I guess.
That's amazing. Tokyo Dome and WrestleMania. What's the big difference there? Like
Wrestle Kingdom, you mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Not much, really.
Wrestle Kingdom's 2 nights, and it's a lot better.
Well, so is WrestleMania now. Shit.
But now I guess it is, yeah.
WrestleMania, Wrestle Kingdom, CMLL Anniversary. These are all things I've been a part of in some fashion, and it's all the same. They're all the same.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about the Cruiserweight Classic. How did that come about with you being a part of that, and what was that like for you, being that it's WWE now, and this is it, because for a lot of people WWE is the place.
I guess for me it was, the context is different because I had so many different experiences with them already. I was kind of in a developmental thing with them when I was a teenager, and then as a young adult in my early 20s, I was doing dark matches and things a lot at SmackDown and Raw and those sort of things. That whole homeless story was because I went to FCW as a walk-on, and I went and did the camp there. And I guess the short version of the long story is, like, I had done so many tryout matches at Raws and SmackDowns, and Tommy Dreamer pulled me aside one day and said, maybe you should try something else, like, this may not be the best way to get in. Why don't you go down to Florida and get into the system down there and see if maybe there's an opportunity there. And, I'm not a lazy wrestler. You tell me something, I'll do it 200%. So I moved. I was 22 or something. I moved to Florida, walked on. I signed up for wrestling school at FCW because you could sign up. That's how they scout, like, bodybuilders and football players and stuff. You could just sign up to work out there. So they have separate training during the day. They have the contracted guys during the night. They have these brand new people. So I quit New Japan, quit TNA, quit Ring of Honor, quit Mexico, and signed up as if I'd never wrestled before. And I didn't want any stigma of being a wrestler, because at the time they didn't like small guys and they didn't like wrestlers. So I was like, I don't want that stigma. So I just walked in and was like, I would like to learn how to wrestle. Keep in mind, I've been wrestling 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
23. I've been wrestling 10 years and in the Tokyo Dome. I could have retired at that point, and my resume would have been better than 99% of most guys already. So it was like a lot of like pride to swallow, to just be like, yeah, that didn't exist. And just I walked in and said, I've never done this before. I would like to do this. I'm 23 years old. I just want to give it a shot while I'm still young. And they let me sign up and did the camp. A few months later, they're like, we got nothing for you. We have our one Evan Bourne. We have our one Tyson Kidd. We don't need another small guy. So see you later. And that was it. And I couldn't, the people are talented. You can't just go back and get your old jobs back. New Japan picked up new foreigners, and Ring of Honor filled up with guys, and TNAs, everybody, so I just had to start all over. I was wrestling in dive bars and shit in Florida, and I got evicted, and was living out of my car and sleeping in laundromats for a few weeks and stuff. And wrestling for $15, you know, like when I was 18 years old, New Japan handed me a contract, $3,000 in yen, and put me on a first class ticket to Tokyo and put me in the Tokyo Dome Hotel. I was 18 years old. Like three months before that, I was sitting in English class. And I went from that and like live TNA pay-per-views in front of the world and all that to we're wrestling in dive bars in front of 8 people.
And sleeping in a laundromat. That's insane.
Yeah, like, but you know, it's what I had to do. I couldn't get a regular job. It was the middle of the recession, you know, so there's nothing I can do. You know, I don't have education and I don't have work experience because wrestling is all I've ever done at that point. So going and trying to get a job at Baskin Robbins, just guys in suits, college graduates that are getting denied jobs. You know, this is a shit economy at the time.
Yeah,
it's bad. It's just a bad time in the country. You know,
it's kind of hard to get a job if you don't even have like an address.
Yeah,
yeah.
A lot of
people don't. Yeah. So I'm going in there, and these guys are in suits. They're college graduates. They have an address. They have previous work experience, and they're like, "No, sorry, we can't help you. We have to cut back. The recession sucks." And I'm sitting there in like torn up jeans and like a t-shirt, and I can't even fill out my resume because I don't have an address, and I didn't go to college, and I've never had a 9-to-5 job, and they want to know why a 23-year-old person has never worked at all ever.
Hand them your highlight reel.
Yeah, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
So I had to keep wrestling. I just did these shit shows, and you know, you eventually build it back up, and within a couple of years, I was back in the old places, and then. So the Cruiserweight Classic, it was a weird thing for me because, like, it's just so weird because I remember one of the toughest things when I was homeless, I was trying to get extra work at TNA because I was in Florida, so they're just in Orlando. And I remember running out of gas to get there because Tampa and Orlando is kind of far. And I was like, it's okay though, because I'll work. So then I'll make some money for the day. I'll be able to get gas, get home, and then I'll be able to eat, you know, because I'll make money. I got to the gates at Orlando, and the people booking the extras forgot to put me on the list. So I couldn't even get into the facility because they have Universal has really strict security. So I sat out in the rain on
it's like a movie. Like
yeah, and I was like, "Fuck!" I actually didn't work, and I didn't get anything. They just said that not that they said like "fuck you," we don't care, but they just honestly forgot. But you know, it is kind of a lesson. Like that is how meaningless you are to the world at that point, you know. And so I kind of had to like go walk to the gas station, beg for some money, put some gas, and go home and regroup, do another shit show next night. But I guess the funny thing is like a year later, Ring of Honor signed me to a contract. And one of their first shows that they had me on was in Tampa, St. Pete. And I was like, that's weird. And then a year or two later, I asked for my release because TNA was interested in signing me. And Ring of Honor was a light schedule. So I went to TNA. My first match as Suicide was in Tampa. Because they were traveling. They were doing arenas at that time. And they did the Tampa arena. And then, of course, you know, 4 years later, I'm out of TNA now, and WWE had called and we're putting together this Cruiserweight tournament. We'd like to be a part of it. I said, okay. And then the tournament's going to take place in Orlando. And so it's a weird cosmic experience for me. And then to like come back to WWE and to do it in Florida and to like be the big winner and like kind of conquer this thing. And it's like you guys are the ones that made me homeless in the first place.
Yeah.
And you're telling my story. They're telling the homeless story on TV, but they leave out the part that they're the ones I was chasing when I became homeless.
We told them we didn't need him, and here we are. We really want a bunch of guys that are just like you.
But you know, it was a unique experience, very fulfilling, you know, because you can imagine now with all that context, like what it meant, you know.
And then how does that feel for you, knowing that you were the first ever Cruiserweight champion? Well, the new Cruiserweight,
the new generation.
And now they don't have one.
Well, we don't know technically yet what
it's
they're
like
going to do
merged with the North American.
Yeah.
So,
but I assume they're just going to do away with it.
Was there like someone in your corner in WWE that was pushing for you to win that?
I don't know. I don't think so necessarily, but I think that cumulatively, I rapidly became, because I don't think they knew what they wanted to do in the beginning.
Well, I was going to ask that. I was going to say, did they have that planned, or like? Because honestly, to me, I thought Kota Ibushi was going to definitely win it.
Oh, of course you did.
He was, to me, he was the biggest name in it.
But I mean, look, like Ciampa was in it, Gargano. There was a lot of big names.
Yeah. That is really more the important layer, is that there's a lot of different guys. But a little insight on that first bit, like, there's a reason why they put Ibushi and Zack in separate brackets, because they know that diehard fans are going to fantasy book that match immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Therefore, they know they don't have to do that match. You're already roped in.
Yeah.
So that was like never going to happen. Not that either one of them maybe wasn't still a candidate, because they did ask me. I knew I was going through after round 2, so it wasn't like it was like last minute. But I didn't ask them like before that. Maybe they knew before the tournament started they wouldn't be me. I'm not sure. But I didn't know until round 2, because I don't ask that stuff. I don't care if I win or lose anything. It doesn't mean anything to me. But they asked me who I wanted to wrestle in the finals. And they asked either Zack or Metallic. And I chose Zack initially because I'm friends with Zack and we have a similar style. And I'm friends with Metallic too. And obviously we have a similar style as well. I guess that's because of me, because I do different stuff. But like, I think they felt like, even though I chose Zack, they went with Metallic because it would be a more diverse matchup. Me and Zack, I mean, trading hammerlocks isn't for everybody. But
yeah,
like some people, there's a lot of people that would probably find that very boring and wouldn't like it as much. So Metallic gave us, he was going to make it so that I use more of my weapons. And so then it becomes a more, a bigger match, I guess. But yeah, so there wasn't really anybody like that I know of that was pulling for me or pushing me or anything, but I did notice that they kind of babied me very significantly. And that was very weird. Usually you go to WWE and it's like you're a total dipshit. Like they don't care about you at all. Like it's like, you know, they know they have 10 out of 10 guys they invite are like, how high, you know, do you, when you ask them to jump, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like they show up in their little suits and 15 minutes early and they're all eager to, you know, show how much of a do-gooder they are and stuff. And I was no different. I tried to make good impressions. And they couldn't have treated me, not bad, but like, you know, I was insignificant. And it was like, when I was homeless, I got invited to do some dark matches, which angered me, to be honest. I was still a talent on their scouting list. And they're like, hey, are you available to do these matches in like Jacksonville and God, where was it? Jacksonville and South Carolina. And immediately in my head, this was like, you know, well before the Cruiserweight Classic. This is when I was homeless. This was like 2010 or 11, something like that. And I remember getting that call and internally being like, what? Fuck you guys. Like, you didn't want me. I'm sleeping in my car because you just told me you didn't want me like a month ago. What do you mean, will I do these matches? You know, but I needed the money, so I went and did them. But like, from previous experiences, I was like, I'm not gonna jump through these hoops. You know, I just need this money. So I didn't show up in a suit. I showed up like this in street clothes. I didn't even bring gear. Nothing. I just showed up because I know you can show up, you check in. Most of the time, they let you sit around all day. They don't even call your name once. So I was like, I'm just going to show up, eat some food, get paid, and leave. They don't want me. I already know that. So no big deal. And I don't know what it is, but like that attitude, it's like when they have somebody that's eager to work for them, it's like a turn off to them. But for whatever reason, when they have the opposite, that's like a turn on for them. And so like the minute I showed up, they're like, we need you to do a match on TV with The Miz. We need you to do a match tomorrow on TV with Sheamus. And I'm like, I pulled Jamie Noble aside. I said, and I know Jamie a long time. So I was like, Jamie, I got to level with you. I didn't bring gear. I was gonna eat some cookies and catering and just kind of peace out, you know. Like he's been around, he knows the deal, but he's like, I get it, but go see the seamstress. They're gonna make you some tights, and you know, borrow some boots and do this match. And I was like, God, man, like, you do everything right, you get yelled at still for something. But holy shit, I was doing everything wrong, and they were like accommodating me, like, you know,
Yeah.
so much. Like, if you just show up, you get paid whatever. But if you'll do a match on TV, they'll give you like more because you're doing something, you know. So you end up getting paid more. I'm like, how are you guys giving me more? You're rewarding me for this. So when I went to do the Cruiserweight Classic, I didn't have the same attitude, but I just kind of thought, you know, I'll do the tournament. I don't care about staying here. I don't think I'm going to get a job out of this, but I knew it would be kind of a big thing, and diehard fans would really like it. It'd be like the Super J Cup, you know. WWE doesn't make a Cruiserweight tournament ever, you know.
Yeah, that's what I thought of when I first heard it. I thought they're trying to do their version of a Super J Cup, and they'll do this every year. That's what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, you know, this is not even a generational thing. They never do this. So,
yeah,
you know, this will be special. I'm glad to be a part of it. I'll come do it. But, you know, I didn't try to be on time. I would show up late for meetings and orientation stuff. They'd have everybody at the PC like a week or two before the tournament started, just to do physicals, work out, have meetings, understand protocols and things like that, which a lot of the stuff I already knew because I'd already been through WWE a few times. So I knew what they expected in Gorilla, in that stage, the timing, the production, the way your matches kind of need to be filmed, things like that, etiquette, things like that. So, you know, I was kind of lackadaisical, and I thought, you know, and I'm big on accountability. Like, if I do if I let down, I expect to be yelled at, and I accept it. I wouldn't be like, oh, don't yell at me, fuck you. Like, I'd be like, no, I had a couple. You know? Like, I get it. But they didn't once scold me for anything. They did the exact opposite. I would show up late for meetings, and the whole tournament would be in this room already, listening intently and doing everything they're supposed to do in all their suits and stuff. And I'd show up in jeans and maybe a collared shirt, maybe. And I'd be late. They'd pull me aside and they'd say, hey, don't worry. And they'd pull me to a back room and say, we'll catch you up on everything. You know, come back here and do this paperwork and whatever. And I was like, why are you guys being so nice to me? And after each match, like, you know, every producer, not even just mine, but like everybody, and like Hunter, all these different people would be waiting behind the curtain and talk to me and ask me what I thought about the matches and all this stuff. Hunter pulled me aside after the first match and asked if I'd be interested in coaching and producing someday. I told him I'd just do it right now. I was like, I don't gotta be a wrestler. I'll quit. He's like, no, we want you to wrestle, but it's just a question because, you know, it's rare somebody of my age and experience, you know, and my IQ for wrestling. So he's like, you would be an asset someday. So we just wanted to gauge your interest in that.
Sorry to cut you off, but at this time, did they now know that you lied about your previous experience, or?
I don't think they had any sort of recollection of me in the past ever, to be honest.
Nothing exists outside of WWE.
Yeah, that's true. They don't care.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think they have. I don't think they even knew that I came to FCW before. I don't think they knew they ever invited me for dark matches before. It was like, who is this brand new guy? So, you know, the first couple matches in the tournament, you know, I had Mac the first round, Gargano the second round. And after the second round is when they asked me. And after the second round is also when they signed everybody, too. So, like, everybody, like, you know, there's always such, like, I don't know what the right word is, but the conversation about and speculations about people just, like, signing and everything like that. Like, except for a few of the foreigners, like, and I think it was just the Europeans, like Noam Dar and like Jack. They had to sign contracts before the tournament started because of visa things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Zach already had a visa, so he didn't have to sign anything. But WWE handled those guys' visa, and so like after the second round of the tournament, that's where everybody got their offers. Like there wasn't like this long-term back and forth with like Coda and Zach and guys that people thought were going to win the tournament, and everybody wasn't signed up until that point. So it's like they didn't choose me because I signed. I didn't sign a contract until Clash of the Champions after. Like I was not under contract when I won it.
So, and not to keep fanboying on Ibushi, I'm the New Japan guy here, but so Ibushi had an offer.
No, I mean he got an offer just like everybody else did at the same time.
Yeah, because Zack Sabre didn't sign either.
No, I get it. I get why he didn't.
Zack Sabre was Wiki Boss said he was out.
So the way that it happened after, because I remember it was after the Gargano match, because I remember sitting in Full Sail doing the contract offers with a split eyelid, because Gargano split my eyelid with Londar.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he split my eyelid and tore my meniscus.
Wow.
Because my leg got tangled up in the rope, like it scorpioned over my head when I was going in. And I hit the turnbuckle and rolled out. You can probably see it on video. I grabbed my knee and he's pinning me and I kicked out. I'm still holding my knee. Which the irony is we're supposed to be telling his knee story. And I was like, oh, I think I actually hurt my knee, dude. But I remember limping to the back, and Hunter and all, like I said, like they would always be waiting for me, the whole collective. And they were like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, my knee's kind of hurting. They're like, no, your fucking face, dude. Because I was like bleeding out of my face. I was like, oh, I didn't know my face was messed up. But anyway, after that show ended, they have a viewing room in Full Sail. It's a theater, a movie theater. It's one of the classrooms. And so during the show, when you're not up and you're changed, they have catering in there and you could sit in the theater and watch the show. They have it up on the big screen. So after the show, they usually have a closing meeting with Hunter, and he addresses the whole room and thanks for coming. You guys killed it. The next show is going to be on this date. We'll be reaching out to organize your schedules and yada, yada, yada. Just, post-game coaches meeting, that sort of thing. So we all got herded in there, like all 30, however many of us. And they had Hunter, Regal, Canyon Seaman, Norman Smiley, Terry Taylor, Coach Bloom. And they had 4 stations set up where all those guys were divided to like 4 different tables. And they were calling us up to each table one by one and making contract offers. Like discreetly. So you would get called up to one table, somebody would get called up to that one, and they would have their little private meeting about 20 feet away. So you didn't know what they were talking about or what the offers were, but everybody was getting their offers. And I was sitting with Zach, because like I said, Zach's a good friend of mine. And I remember talking to him, like, what do you think you want to do? And he's like, I don't want to sign. He's like, I'm going to ask him to give me like a year. And then later he was like, I might ask him to give me like 2 years, but meaning let me do what I want for a couple of years and then I'll come back, And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because he was about to start with New Japan. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to sign because I want to do Lucha Underground. And I've been in TNA for a few years. Like, I want to go back to Japan. I want to go back to Mexico. I want to do all these things. But Metallic asked for more money. That's what he always does that. No matter what number you give him, he'll ask for more money. So I remember he held out, Zach held out. I have no idea what happened with Coda, but I think there was just a back and forth because he didn't really want to be in America, long term.
Yeah.
Obviously, he enjoyed working with WWE because he kept doing NXT even after the tournament was over. So, like, it's not like he said, fuck you, I'm out. Like, I just think he didn't want to be there for, like, 5 years.
He didn't want to be held down, yeah.
And he was going to be a big, like, junior heavyweight for New Japan and eventually become a main eventer. So, like, same as Zach. Like, he was about to start another job that was important to him. So they came for me kind of hard. They gave me like a normal offer, and then they gave me a raise when I said no, and then I still said no, and I'll have to think about it, and then they upped it again, and then eventually I signed. But it was after the tournament when I signed. But it was around this time that I kind of like, because then they asked me who I wanted to wrestle in the finals, and I was like, okay, I kind of get it. You guys are taking care of me for a reason. You babied me for a reason. You make sure I'm super comfortable at all times. So it was around this time is how I knew. And that's kind of how it played out for everybody. We all got our offers that day. The only ones that didn't, I think, like Gulak didn't, Nice didn't, Ali didn't, and Davari didn't. And then a few others ended up like just not getting. I don't think Anthony Bennett got one. And for whatever reason, I don't think they tried to offer for Jason Lee. Like Ho obviously stayed, but like I thought Jason Lee was really, really great. But everybody else got offers except for like those 4 guys, and then they were just kind of on the bubble for a while. And then eventually they got their offers.
I was gonna say I remember Gulak being there for a majority of it at least. So
yeah, so like it was like maybe a few months into us doing some Raw matches, and at TV, like Gulak is another friend of mine a long time, and him and Davari, like we would me and some of the other guys that were already in, we would kind of check with them each week, like, hey, what's the latest? And they would always kind of tell them, hey, like their analogy to those guys was like the hotel's full, but as soon as rooms open up, you guys are like the first guys. And eventually they did. When they figured out how they'll work them in, they signed them all. So
at that point, did they make you guys aware that there's going to be like a 205 live show and a whole cruiserweight division?
They told us
you guys all thinking it was like a one-off.
They told us that right after the finals. After the match with me and Metallic and the fucking parade and confetti, we went back into the Full Sail room like we do for the meetings, and then Hunter said, because we also didn't know there was going to be a title either. We just thought it was a tournament. I found out there was going to be a title the moment you guys did. Like when Hunter came out, nobody said he was going to come to the ring. So I thought I was about to start my match with Metallic. So when Hunter's music played, in my head I thought like, oh wow, he's gonna come pedigree us, and this whole thing was a big joke. DX,
I got a new one.
DX is back, baby.
Yeah.
And that's I mean I joke, but I actually kind of thought maybe that's what it is. So I didn't know that there was even going to be a title until that moment. He just said, hey, here's what you guys are fighting for. I'm like, oh, fuck, okay. And then after, when we had the meeting, then they're like, on top of this, guys, we're also going to have this Cruiserweight show because the tournament has gone so well, and they want to invest in a show. So
that's nice.
It all gets started. So
you knew you were going to be in the finals, but did they tell you were going to win it ahead of time, or was that like a last minute?
They probably knew, but I don't ask, because they looked at me like I was weird because like the last day I showed up to it was the PC, I think, to work out like before the finale. And I was talking to the producers who were kind of giving me the rundown for my matches that night or for the finale. And I was like, okay. And like, what do you guys want for the end? And like, it was Coach Bloom. He looked at me like I was fucking purple or something. It was like, he's like, you don't know? And I'm like, no, I don't know. Like, cause I don't ask that shit. I don't care if I win or lose. You know, I just wanted to know what they wanted me to do that night. And he's like, nah, you're the man. You're going through all the way. I was like, all right, thank you. But like, they probably knew the whole time. But I don't know. Maybe most guys would have asked after round 2 when they said, hey, who do you want in the finals? They would have asked, well, what's the story? What's the plan? Am I winning? Like, what am I doing? Like,
true.
I don't do that type of thing. I don't care. Like, just tell me what your directions are. So I didn't know. Maybe they all knew, and they're like, what the fuck's wrong with this kid?
Your character, did you have anything to inspire that, or did you just like, did they give that to you? Or
that's what guys did they ever try to change your name? Were they always TJP, or were they going to try and give you a gimmick of some sort?
No, they never asked me to change my name. And no, I had the total opposite experience with them in regards to all that. As soon as I showed up, I was always, TJ and TJ Perkins, and they never asked me to change anything. I asked them if I could change the American flag to the Filipino flag, and they said yes without issue. Like, the conversation took 5 seconds. And when I was on 205 and turned heel, I knocked on Vince's door and I pitched I mean, I talked to Vince a lot, but like, so this was, I don't know, 7th or 8th meeting with him or whatever at this point. But I said, when I turned heel, I said, I have 2 things I want to ask. Can I shorten my name to TJP as a nickname? They used to say it for me on the indies and like Evolve and stuff like that. And I think sounds kind of pretentious, and if nothing else, it's kind of catchy. You know, Y2J, CP3, HBK. You know, it's easy. He said yes, no problem. And then the other thing I asked for was a valet, because Summer Rae and I wanted to pitch doing a thing, because she had been cleared, but they didn't have any ideas for her. And so we were like, what if we do like a Sean and Sherry type thing? Because I just turned heel, and being a bad guy, even when I'm a good guy, being I guess a pretty boy gets me heat anyway. a lot of wrestling fans' boyfriends hate me. So I thought this would be a good idea, and she was like, "Yeah, I would love to do that," because she didn't have anything to do, you know. And so we both pitched it, but Vince turned that one down.
Is that before or after she was with Dango?
Oh, way after. She never ended up coming back to TV. They never gave her anything.
Oh, okay.
They released her soon after that. But like, I think he said no because she's too tall. It's like me and Gulak. Yeah, me and Gulak are the tallest cruiserweights, and she's about the same height as me, so it doesn't look bad for me. But like, if she's like towering a foot over Nar or like Rich, then it kind of makes us look bad, I guess, is what his thinking was. So,
is the whole video game thing your idea?
Yes, that also was my idea. When I first got there, actually before I first got there, I got a phone call the week of Clash of the Champions, and it was CFO Money. And they're like, "Hey, we're working on your music. Do you like the song you had in the Cruiserweight Classic? Do you want something like that? Give us your thoughts. What do you think?" I said, I like the song, it's okay, but it's not really me, you know. And they said, okay, well, what do you like? We can figure something out. Like, what do you listen to? And I gave them the worst fucking list of all time. Like, I was like, well, I like Blink 182, Tupac, Elvis, Billie Holiday, you know, like Nirvana, Rolling Stones, Ella Fitzgerald. Like, I mean, it was like terrible, right? And he was, he's so polite. The guys, they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll see what we come up with. So I called him back like 2 minutes later and I said, no, this is what I want. I'm trying to create Scott Pilgrim. So can you write me something that sounds like Dr. Wiley's Castle?
Yeah.
And then when I got to Raw, I didn't have to wrestle the first couple of weeks, I think, that I was at TV. So when I was at Raw, I just got to know the production crew, catering crew, everybody. I went to the production guys and I said, can you do a Titantron that looks like a mishmash of like Marvel vs. Capcom, Super Mario World, Zelda, Mega Man? And they said, yes, we can put a power bar and like little like cherries and coins and power-ups and stuff. We can do a menu screen where it's all the other wrestlers. And I said, yes, perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. And then CFO came back with that song and they were like, we're big video game fans. We love retro gaming. And this is like a song we've been waiting to make forever, but it didn't fit anybody else. And you're the first person to ask. And I said, great. So that's how it all came about.
That's awesome. That drew me in, honestly.
Yeah, he's the big video game
and
guy.
I'm sure that's what drew a lot of kids in as well, because obviously,
to this day, it's just it became a big crossover idea, and like I think at the right time, because like Twitch streaming and things like that wasn't quite as popular yet. It was in its infancy, and so like. There was such a big generation of like young adults that are like my age, that like kind of came up in the 80s and they're not over 40 yet, but they're not like Minecrafters. They grew up on Super Mario and Back to the Future and stuff like that. Yeah. So even if you weren't into gaming, but you just grew up on like
cartridge games.
Even if you didn't even play video games in the 80s, but you grew up on like Back to the Future and RoboCop and Star Wars. you look at that and you're like, oh yeah, this feels like when I was growing up, even if you didn't play Mario Brothers, you know, like, so it appealed to them and it appealed to kids because, you know, then that's still part of our culture, you know, and then as Twitch streaming came about, like it became the, you know, the next 3-4 years that I, you know, like that I was known for that. Like it ended up being linked to all these changes in the world. So forever, no matter how I reinvent myself, I'll probably always be that guy to so many people.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people before your WWE run, they knew you as playing Suicide. So how did Suicide come about for you? I know it was based on the TNA video game, which wasn't the best video game, to be honest. But
that was created just for that game.
I enjoyed it when I first played it, to be honest.
So did I. But Suicide was just a created character on the Impact game.
I think he was a non-playable character, wasn't he?
He was what you were in the story. Yeah.
So how did that go from the video game to real life, and how did you get to become a part of that?
So there's like a weird, like long callback for me becoming Suicide, because when they first pitched it to Frankie Kazarian, we were in Texas for a pay-per-view, the Destination X 2008, I think. We're in Houston. So halfway through the show, Frankie came back to the locker room and he's just total sour face. He's like, they pitched me this character that I got to do. And he's like, this masked character named Suicide that they're going to introduce. And Frankie had just gotten out of a few really shit storylines and was finally getting to just be himself. And like, you know, he was becoming a more seasoned and older performer. So he was like coming into his own. It was the right time for him to just let loose. So was
this after he was wrestling for the belt for a while? Didn't he wrestle Jarrett for the or Christian? Maybe at some point. Was that like 2006? My timeline gets fuzzy.
Could be somewhere around then, but like somewhere around the mid 2000s, like he had been stuck in that group where it's like the Ravens flock.
Oh, I remember that with Bentley.
Yeah, like,
wasn't Punk in that at some point?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe.
This is before him and Daniels and AJ.
Yeah, this is before that. Okay.
So he had just finally kind of gotten the reset button. He gets to be Frankie Kazarian again, and you know he's happy. So they tell him this, and he's bummed out. And we're sitting around. It's like me, Joe, Chris, the Machine Guns. Just, you know, we're all buddies. And Chris Daniels jokes. He goes, "They should just have TJ do it. He's already wrestling in a mask, and they don't know what they want to do with him because I was Puma at the time, and I wasn't a full-time wrestler there. I would come and go, you know." And so we all laughed, like, yeah, that would be a better idea, whatever. And I didn't. After that, I didn't come back to TNA till like 2012. Like I was gone for a while. So Frankie went on to do it, and he got hurt in the debut. So Chris Daniels filled in. They kind of ping-ponged back and forth. Then the character kind of died because the guys that were doing it didn't care about the character. They didn't like it, you know, so their heart wasn't in it, you know. And so when I came back after Ring of Honor, they signed, like I said, I asked for my release at Ring of Honor. They signed me at TNA as Puma, but they didn't have a story for me. So I sat at home for a little bit until they figured out what to do. And I would see these bumpers every week, you know, Suicide is returning, Suicide's coming back, Suicide's coming back in 3 weeks, Suicide's coming back next week. And I called the office and I said, you know, I don't know what your guys' plans are for this, but I know that you kind of just have whoever do it because it's like not a dedicated character anymore. It's just like
Kaz Hazashi did it for a little while too, right?
Yeah, like he did it for like 3 matches. You know, like guys would just be like, "Hey, do you have a match today? You're Suicide today." You know, like that sort of thing.
No one took ownership of it.
Yeah. So I was like, if you don't have any other plans like that's important, I'll do it because I don't have anything to do right now. I kind of want to go back. I want to get to work, you know. And they said, okay, we'll think about it. And then they called me back like a day later. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll come in and do it. That was when I said, they're like, your first show is in Tampa. I was like, I'll back to Tampa. Great. So I did it, and it was only meant to be a day. They were just going to bring it back just because they were about to heat up the X division because they wanted to do Chris Sabin for the world title. So they wanted to make the X division like really competitive, have Chris Sabin get the title, cash in, and do his thing. And so they're like, we need to have some good matches. So Suicide was just going to be part of one match, just, special occasion. But they saw that, and Dixie especially was like, this is how we always imagine the character would be. The way you wrestle, the way you walk, the way you carry yourself.
Yeah, because you and Kaz and Daniels have different styles.
Well, they're more like heavyweights, and they portrayed Suicide like a heavyweight, which isn't bad. I mean, I thought they did a great job, but I just think in their mind, they wanted Deadpool and Spider-Man. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And so, I have a mix of all kinds of different stuff. And I told him, I was like, and I also don't hate the character, so I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So then one match turned into two turned into three. And then before I knew it, I was X Division champion. And then I was signed to a long-term contract as Suicide. And then the rest is history.
And then how did you go from Suicide to Manik?
So one of the early shows, we were in Boston. It was right after the Boston Marathon bombing. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was just kind of a somber time. And it wasn't like it was a shooting or anything, but like it was just the tone, like in the country and just socially was dark. It was kind of low. And I remember talking to them. I said, you guys are a bigger. They were like what AEW is now. Like they're running arenas, they're touring, and they had proper pay-per-views. They're on a big network with Spike TV and everything. They were trying to go big.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if you guys thought that maybe this isn't like a great thing to promote, and keep in mind too, like Marvel movies and stuff hadn't come about to where people can start understanding a dark toned character like that and accept it as not controversial. So you call something Suicide in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and it's like, ugh, it's a little bit dark. But now if you do it, it's like, oh, I get it, because we have Venom, we have the Suicide Squad, we have these things that are like kind of dark, and it's a comic book, Deadpool, like you have these things that there's avenues for it that the public has been conditioned for. Now it's acceptable. But at the time, I was like, maybe if you guys want to consider it, we can think of a new name. I'm open to it. I don't care. So they said, okay, that's a good idea. I told Devon Dudley this. He was the producer there at the time. And then they came back and they said, what about the name Manik? Would you do that? And I said, yeah, that's fine. I can make that work. That's good. But they also had this whole thing with the Austin Aries storyline where they're like, we're going to unmask you, but we don't want Suicide to go away. Like, we want you to still be that character. But obviously, now they know your identity. We have to come up with the next direction for it. And I said, well, so the only Marvel movie that had come about at that point was Iron Man. And I was like, what if it's like Iron Man, I don't have to hide my identity. That I'm Tony Stark. That I'm Iron Man. So go ahead. We'll shoot the promos and the backstages without my mask. And when I go to the ring, I'm Suicide. I wear the whole suit, just like Iron Man. Like, you talk to Tony Stark, he's Iron Man. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be Iron Man until he fights.
Kind of like the Fiend.
Yeah. So, but even more open than that, you just, that and I said, get camera shots of me behind the curtain, putting the mask on, and then I go, and some of the promos with Hogan, like where we had one specifically where he's like, when you put the mask on and blah 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 blah, you just you go to another level, and then me kind of explaining to him, like it makes me, in character obviously, it makes me in real life I don't really give a shit, but my character, I'm like, I feel like more like locked on and stuff with it, and so they're like, okay, we can go with that. And then they were like, well, we want to turn you heel. So then, what do you think? And then I said, well, this is kind of outside the box, but I wanted to base Suicide Manik off of the Aswang and Filipino culture. So basically what I told them, what I wanted to do, this was before Finn was doing it, but I said, it's the same thing as like the Finn demon, like Great Muta. I told them, I want to do something like Great Muta. People already know I'm TJ. You're going to turn me heel. Let me change the costume and change the mask up a little bit. And let me make it kind of a creepy, macabre, like almost horror type thing, like a shapeshifter. So every time you see Manik, it'll be a different different colors, different masks, different, like totally different entity. But I'm not Manik most of the time. I'll be TJ almost all the time. And then every now and then I become Manik. Just like how Keiji Muto and Great Muta is. And they just being how big companies are with creative, like they didn't really bite all the way on it, and they argue amongst themselves. They want stuff to be their own idea, so they only went as far as changing the suit, turning me heel, but then I was still Manik all the time, and it was like I didn't get to do it the way I would like to do it, so it got lost. And they're like, they didn't understand it. And I remember years later, like just, this past year when they asked me to do Manik again, I said, yes, but allow me to do it the way I want. So I like painted the face and had a different suit each time, unmasked one of the times and stuff like that. And I was like, it's supposed to be like a Great Muta thing, like Finn Balor. And they're like, oh yeah, I get it. I'm like, yeah, you didn't get it 4 years ago.
Yeah, you get it now because Balor did it. Yeah, but when I was trying to do it,
you get it when somebody shows you how it fucking works.
Yeah,
like way to miss the boat by 5 years, guys.
Yeah, you could have been it. Yeah,
because at the time we knew you played Suicide, and we saw Manik and Suicide. We also knew you were Manik, so it was like, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah, and there's so much stuff that went off the rails with it, but that was how it came about, and what it was supposed to be, and how it turned out. But yeah, way in the beginning, we joked. We were like, let's just have TJ be Suicide.
It should have just been Suicide the entire time.
Yeah, and then 4 years later, I ended up actually becoming Suicide.
Yeah, because now you have like a sleeveless hoodie, and as Manik, you can clearly see the tattoos.
Well, tattoos are expensive. You gotta show them off.
Yeah. So we knew what was going on, but that's why we internet now, it's kind of hard to hide things.
Oh, you said we read what was going on. We don't know anything.
Yeah.
I remember too, like the moment I did that spider move on the ropes, that first match, everybody knows me.
Oh, yeah.
I went to the ring. My phone was 100% battery and not a single fucking message. When I came back, my battery was dying and like I had 1,000 messages because people knew it was me the moment I did that fucking thing.
Where did you have the most fun working? New Japan, Mexico, as TJP in WWE, or as Manik in TNA?
I mean, it's a mixed bag. I think I probably had the most fun wrestling in Mexico. But I had fun everywhere. Impact has always had an incredible locker room. The guys always have fun and get along there.
Because Manik was
not always great, but
Manik was your creation, and your TJP character was obviously your creation. So I'm sure that felt great to go out there and just do you and be you. But
it does in a way, but I've never looked at wrestling like people look at wrestling like it's people look at wrestling like it's real. Performers do, like they even if they don't wrestle under their real name, like maybe they pick a name, like Jonathan the Blade Razor or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And they still approach it like this is me, and they build this career like I did this is me doing this, and this legacy is mine. These people know who I am, and I am accomplishing these things, and someday at the end of it I am retiring. I've never looked at wrestling that way. Like I don't look at it like I'm Michael Jordan building a career. Like I look at it like the way Johnny Depp looks at acting. So I enjoy being Puma or Suicide or El Bombero or Sadistico or whatever, because to me that's like, oh, I get to play the Mad Hatter on this project. I get to play Edward Scissorhands. I'm Sweeney Todd on this one. So me being me, that's like being that's I'm playing Donnie Brasco or Once Upon a Time in Mexico or something like that's Johnny Depp kind of being more himself. But like I enjoy playing characters as much as I enjoy playing me, and I don't think I'm leaving this legacy of TJ Perkins. I think I'm just trying to do these things and make money, and someday when I leave, these characters just are what they are to other people. They're not mine. It's not my career or legacy. It's just whatever it is. Like, so I enjoyed being me, but I enjoyed all of it. You know, I enjoy the creativity of becoming something you're not.
You guys have any other
That's a great way to look at it, because you always hear stories about like Terry Taylor being the Red Rooster. He never embraced it. Just go out there and be a play runner and have fun with whatever you're given.
I mean, look at Taker and Godfather. They made do with what they had. They became those characters.
I think Godfather is Godfather.
Right.
We know that now.
Oh yeah,
Taker
We
character.
sat next to him, and he is Godfather.
That Taker character should have never worked.
Yeah.
That gimmick should have never worked, but he sold it. He bought into it, so you did.
Yeah, I just think, and I think at a certain point I had enough wisdom. I mean, I did always enjoy playing characters, but at a certain point, getting in at a young age and doing it for so long, when I got in at a young age, I had the foresight to know I'm going to do this for a very long time. So I kind of understood, like, to pace myself a little bit, and to know that my value is not really going to reach itself until so later. Even like barely now, I think I'm realizing I'm barely now kind of cashing in on all this years of preparation and experience. Because I'm finally kind of old enough, in my 30s. Like,
I was gonna say, you say old enough, but you're still extremely young.
But like, I'm finally old enough to like be like in my prime, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I knew that when I was a teenager and like making all these like characters and stuff. And then like after a while, you get 10, 15 years in, and me still being young, I knew like, fuck man, this is a long time. So even if like stuff comes up and you may not necessarily like it, or maybe you like it just fine, but it's just not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I always had the foresight to know, like, okay, I could give this a year or two, and maybe I'll make some money, and maybe I'll create something that's really cool, and I don't have to do it forever. It'll just be for a couple of years. A lot of performers, they think right now is it. This is all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fuck, dude. You're like 10 years from now, you'll look back on that and say, man, I could have killed a couple of years doing whatever the fuck. And you're so nervous about making it big tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Well, and like you said before, most of the guys only start in their late 20s, early 30s.
yes, yeah.
So 20 years from then, they're past their prime and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And you started so early. So now you're finally, like you said, in your prime, in your mind, and you still have, 10, 15 years left to do, whatever you want
God
to
willing,
do.
yeah.
You always hear all the time about the veterans, like Justin probably knows, like trying to protect their character. I can't lose on TV, or I can't lose,
Or even backstage.
I can't lose the belt. Like they have to protect that character so much.
I'll
I don't know. It's weird.
I'll end it with two questions here. Did you kind of make your own style, or did you have an influence? And who was your favorite to work with?
I think if I had to pick an influence, my three biggest influences are actually tattooed on my arm. I got here Tiger Mask,
Okay.
Eddie, and Sean.
That's awesome.
Those are great.
And I picked them
And
all.
it's
for
the three.
different reasons.
It's three very similar styles in different cultures. It's Mexican, Japanese, and in American culture.
So stylistically, like from a content and art aspect, Tiger Mask was always a big influence on me. Like when I first got scouted by New Japan, they drew a lot of those comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiger Mask was my favorite wrestler growing up. And he's a small guy. He's only 5'6". Yeah. So stylistically and artistically, Tiger Mask he was always my favorite wrestler. He was obviously junior heavyweight. He was a small guy. He's like 5'6", and I wrestled very similar to him. Like he had a lucha libre background and a technical wrestling background. He learned catch wrestling in Europe, and I was brought up with technical wrestling and lucha libre. I could fly a little bit, and I was really good at boxing, like Muay Thai and stuff like that. So like when I first got scouted to New Japan, they drew a lot of those comparisons. That's how it became Puma. They wanted me to kind of open up and pursue that and be like him. So Tiger Mask is on there, Eddie is on there, and Sean. Like Sean, I feel like is always he's great in the ring. We know he's great in the ring. He later in life he became kind of a mentor for me. When I got to WWE, it was great because I would meet with him every week after I'd fly back to Orlando just to meet with him every Wednesday after 205, just to talk business, life, philosophy, stuff like that.
Were you kind of fanboying at first?
Not really, because I don't see people or things like that. Like,
I was gonna say, starting so young,
Yeah.
you probably don't. You just people are people.
yeah, I've never really looked at anybody in that sort of thing. That's what kind of helped me with like being able to be with Vince all the time. Just like Vince, to me, he's just a dude that I work for.
Yeah.
Most people are so scared of his door, but like to me, it's like, all right, if I have business with him, I gotta talk to him. So talk to him like a man, you know.
Yeah.
But Sean, you know, is obviously a model for me that I've modeled after, and really it's just his aura and his presentation, like how he is, like he lights up a room, and that's a very important thing. And then Eddie is just to me, I think I don't believe in like rating things. There's too many variables for what we do. It's too subjective. You can't say somebody's the best.
Yes.
You can't say somebody's better
I
than
always
another guy.
say
You
that.
don't really. It's it's not a grading system. There's no A, B, C, D, F. It's pass or fail. You could either do it or you can't. Everybody else has, you know, you're in a different promotion with a different team around you. So many things that are beyond your control. You don't know how people are going to digest you or be into you, your character, how your matches are going to go, where you're wrestling, who you're wrestling. Like, there's so much. So I don't rate people, but if I had to consider what would be like the perfect performer, it would be Eddie, because he's got everything, and he's by all accounts, and I'm such an Eddie historian. And the Guerrero family has contributed so much to my upbringing. They've taught me so much when I was younger, because a lot of them were like California-based, you know, Mondo, Hector, Chavo, Junior, and Senior. And a lot of the guys that work with Eddie have been great, like, you know, mentors for me later on in my career, as far as like being able to like build my IQ and ask them questions. And they always give me insight into how Eddie thought, what Eddie did, how he mentally approached everything. And he's just, to me, he's the smartest person that's ever done this. He's brilliant. And he had the physical attributes to match. And so he's always going to be my, you know, Michael Jordan, if you know, in my opinion.
And then who is your favorite to work with in the ring? And if you could pick who you'd want to, just one match just to go out all swinging, who would it be?
What are you saying? Like your career ends tomorrow. Who do you want to be your last match?
That's a tough one, because I've never really had a bucket list, you know. People ask me like, you know, what's your favorite match you've ever had, and I always say the next one.
Yeah, it's a good mentality to have.
Yeah, who's your favorite opponent? I always say the next one. I guess if I had to pick somebody who I had the most fun with, I'd probably say Rocky Romero, and there's a guy by the name of Bobby Quantz, who is a partner of ours in Mexico, me and Rocky. And that's probably what made Mexico so much fun, you know. And Ricky Reyes, Rocky's old partner.
Ricky Reyes has taught me a lot. I've spent a lot of time around him locally, and when you were saying about like the why do you do this, asking questions, he was the one when I was training that taught me, I don't care what you do in the ring, why do you do it? Why do you do that thing?
Yeah, Reyes and Rocky were like they were like my two older brothers when I was starting out. We all started in the same gym. They were a couple years ahead of me, you know. Reyes and Rocky started like 96, 97. I started like late. So they were a little older, a little bit more experienced, and I followed them around everywhere like a little kid. And I think I have the most fun with them, probably just for those reasons. We get along so well, and we've known each other so long. and all the times that I had in Mexico with Rocky and Bobby, like that, just I think because of who they are. The wrestling world is really robbed of Bobby Quance because he decided to get out shortly after that time in Mexico because he wanted to do other stuff with it. He's like real life Forrest Gump. Like one thing in his life is not enough. He's got to do 1,000 different things. So he left wrestling, went on to become a Navy SEAL, and through the Navy, he's getting like his MD to be a doctor. And I keep trying to talk him into doing some indies or something just to come back. But he's the funniest guy I've ever met in my life. Like, just because he's such a free spirit. He's actually very dry and zero charisma, but like, if you know him, he's very funny. And he's got a fearlessness about his behavior that I think I sort of adopted at a young age because I was similar. Like I didn't care or worry about much. And I would see Bobby and I'm like, man, like I want to be just like Bobby. And Bobby didn't care about shit. And yeah, it's just he's such a funny guy. To give you insight on how funny it was, we would do like a radio interview or something. We're in Mexico, so we needed to do a lot of press and like we're representatives of New Japan and CMLL. So we would have to do radio shows or something like that, or like little press conferences to tell our story, who we are, promote that we're there, and the matches and stuff. And Bobby would go on, jump on the mic in mid interview, and he would change our names. Who are you guys? And he would, and instead of introducing us as what we were, he would say, well, I'm Captain Geach, and these are the Shrimp Shack Shooters. And we are here from yada, 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 and just make up just bullshit. And it was really funny because there was one interview that he made up bullshit. It was his backstory. He decided that he said, oh, my name's actually not Bobby, just so you know, my name is Rocco. Because we had this old 60s era wrestler that was training with us at the dojo because he retired. Obviously, he wrestled in the 60s and 70s. He retired a long time ago. But he was just living in Santa Monica. So he heard that the dojo had opened up and he had wrestled Fujinami when he was younger. So he came and was like, hey, like, I just wanted to work out with you guys. So it was weird. We had this old, like 70-year-old like wrestler that was like hanging out with us from like the golden era of NWA, and his name was Mr. Rocco. So one of the interviews we did just as an Easter egg, like Bobby started calling himself Rocco, but then CMLL got confused, so they just started calling Bobby Rocco on commentary. Bobby's insane. He's the funniest guy, and those. If I ever had to pick one match to go out on, I would want all those guys to be involved, just because they're the greatest memories I have are being with them.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time. This was an absolute pleasure and an honor. It was fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
We hope 2022 is a great year for you and your family. And we can't wait to see what you do in professional wrestling for years to come. I enjoyed watching you in WWE and the Cruiserweight because, like I said, video games, I was drawn to that. And your style is just so – it's like mat wrestling you don't see a lot of anymore. And Daniel Bryan is another one where it's like you just have to watch it. So thank you for everything that you've done in the wrestling business and everything that you're going to do. We appreciate you for coming on the podcast. I can't thank you enough, man. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. And thank you for watching. I always say without everybody else, there's no me. I mean, there's none of us, like it's, we do it because people watch. We do it because people are inspired, and we do it sometimes because people need a punching bag. Shit, I've been a punching bag for a lot of people, and that's fine. If it makes their day better and I'm entertaining them, I'm happy. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.